Good Monday afternoon to you. I am Wiley, checking in with the Wiley Report. I hope you're doing well. This is just a random share, some things that I was thinking today, and I figured that I would share it for the Wiley Report. Because I was watching this past weekend. I watched Dave Chappelle's special. I know, I watched it. Because I was nosy. I just wanted to see what was going on, and I had time on my lunch break in between meetings to sit and connect to Netflix and watch it. And then I also thought about it again today because I was on Facebook looking around, and I saw this person had posted about, we should pay attention to people that are woke and conscious, especially if they're entertainers and use their platforms. It made me look up the word conscious, because I was like, okay, is that the same thing? Just my own personal thing. I promise you I'm not being shady. Because conscious means, being aware of what's and or responding to what's going on around you. Hang on. Okay, great. I had turned the wrong thing on. Whoopsie. So anyway, I was like, I don't know. Call me. Hang on. There you go. I fixed it. Anyway. Dave Chappelle, and I guess, the thing about Dave Chappelle is some people find Dave Chappelle problematic when it comes to LGBTQIS people or the trans community, and with some of his specials. And so when people find you problematic or find, things that you say problematic, there's a conversation about cancel culture and should a person, be canceled. And then, so think about that in context of the show, of the Dave Chappelle, effect of what comedy is, and I think about it, why would it be interesting to me? Because I'm always interested in how information is used, how information is applied, words, speech, text, those kinds of things. Thinking about that in everyday culture, in everyday life, that is always fascinating to me. So I was watching, that special, and I was trying to see, why people were saying that. They were, canceled. Some people were upset about Netflix because Netflix is a company that is supposed to be inclusive of other people's ideas. And then, some people are like, well, how can you be inclusive of other people or other people's ideas, or how can you be inclusive, period, and then have people that you pay or you at least greenlight their specials, and those people are not necessarily safe. Those people are not necessarily inclusive. Those people have words, statements, views, ideas, ideologies that harm. That's where that conversation comes from. So what do you do about that? Because it's like, how can you say you're a company that your values are this, you believe this, but then we look and see what you've greenlit, and you're like, that doesn't match, that doesn't add up, is what people, I think, are saying. And I thought about it again, like I said, because somebody was posting about Dave Chappelle being conscious and woke, and then there are people that talk about, well, free speech. And personally, I believe, yes, it's true, we're free to speak and say whatever it is that we would like to say. Yet I also think it's also true that people have a responsibility to think about their words, to make sure that their words do not cause harm and do not tear people down. But that's a personal view. I can't necessarily legislate that be everybody's viewpoint, everybody's perspective. So I was just thinking about positionality in terms of some of the things that Dave Chappelle said. I think one of the challenges is that, yes, it's true that it's comedy, so you do have people that are like, well, comedy is about thinking about the irony of things or making you laugh, and I do understand that, because I've watched a lot of comedy specials, not just Dave Chappelle, but Richard Pryor's and Red Fox and Moms Mabley, comedians of various identities, expressions, and gender and race, and just because I like the history of comedy, understanding the story of what people talk about and how people put things together. That's fascinating to me. So when I was watching the special, he was talking about LGBTQ people, and positionality. Two statements stood out in my mind. Was one, when he talked about the admiration for LGBTQIAS people to get a movement, to get things passed, yet black people, you know, have not had that same level of success. Or two, he talked about the irony that Caitlyn Jenner could change her gender, yet Cassius Clay, you know, Muhammad Ali, could not change his name. Or then he made this crass comment about, you know, who would have known that, you know, if you put booty shorts on and some oil, you know, maybe things would have been different for the slaves. You know, I think with that comment, that more like sexualizes a group of people, or that plays toward the stereotype that people have when they think of or view LGBTQIAS people. But to go back to the first two, which was one about the movement of LGBTQIAS people versus black people who have not had that same level of success. One of those issues, or the issues that are within that, to me, are often positionality, that statement positions black and LGBTQIAS as separate entities, when the reality is they're not. They are interconnected. Two, there's the issue of when he said, you know, Caitlyn Jenner could change her gender, yet Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay basically could not change his name. Well, while that might be true, or at least the statements surrounding that might be true, if you don't look at the reasons for how that came to be so, you miss the major points, which would be like Caitlyn Jenner could change her gender because of positionality, race, and privilege, and access to resources that many black LGBTQIAS people, or people that are not even LGBTQIAS people, black or brown, do not have. That the resources, the level of wealth, the ability to go to the doctor, to get whatever it is that you want done, the services that you receive, black people, brown people, to this day have disparate experiences when it comes to healthcare, getting access to healthcare resources. That's not even to add the fact that it's even more complex when you're LGBTQIAS. It's still disparate. You receive it far more, you know. But the reality is to say that it's more is moot, when the reality, the underlying statement is it's disparate. And we have to, you know, own or at least acknowledge that the reason that she could is because whiteness, and because wealth, and because privilege is a different conversation than just, oh, well, you know, gender is different, or the fact that you can just change your gender, but, you know, there are other issues that you can't change. That's not really the right, I won't say right, but that's not the bigger question. That's not the bigger position, or that's not the position in general. It really isn't. So when you make those statements, it does exactly what I said. It positions gender identity and expression outside of race, when the reality is they're interconnected. And I know oftentimes in the black community, or maybe a lot of communities, the only community I know is black, because as you can see, this melanin is all I've been for 44 years. You might not know any other identity or expression that I have, but you're going to see this melanin. So, and I bring that up because that speaks for me in so many rooms and places and spaces, whether I say things or not. The fact that I am actively visible in the LGBTQIAS community is secondary, or maybe it's not even secondary, because I want to say that level of visibility, that level of confidence or assuredness has only come later in life, as I grew emotionally, mentally, and just comfortable within myself of being all of who I am. Yet, you know, my ultimate point is, I think people who have a platform have to think about the responsibility that comes with it, and the fact that, you know, do your words cause harm to people? And could it be that while people can be nice, people can be brilliant, there can be experiences where people have great character Could that not be destroyed with your viewpoints, with your beliefs, with your values, with your ideologies that perhaps could be a little bit twisted or could be a little bit messed up? Because the reality is, when we think about blackness and we think about, LGBTQIAS or just the world in general, where it's not separate or it's not monoliths, it's interconnected, intersectionalized experiences that people have, because when we're looking at healthcare, just healthcare alone, I think about, the experiences of my mother, who's a heterosexual black woman who carries 4 levels of insurance because she remembers the experience of segregation and what it was like when you had, dental issues and you had a toothache, and they wouldn't even treat you because there wasn't integration. There was no policy, as you want to call it, to treat people. So they would just tell you to spit over in the sink. And she remembered how that made her feel. And when she went to college and she got a job, she wanted to make sure that she had health care. And not only did she have health care, but that her children had health care. And even when she retired, she kept different lines of coverage so that no one would ever tell her no. Yet just because she's done that has not meant that she has not experienced these challenges with healthcare. Challenges that many people that are white or a different race may never experience. But if you discuss that as a separateness or, something that is just, anomaly, then you miss the greater perspective that disparities in healthcare exist. And the truth is that most people, not most people, but the truth is that all people really want access to healthcare, to whatever resources that are available to them or that are here, period. Should they not be able to have these resources and do whatever they need to do, whatever that is that they need to get done? Should they not be treated equal? Should they not be treated fair? Should they not be treated just? It isn't a separatist type movement. Yet oftentimes some of the challenges in listening to the perspectives like Dave Chapelle is telling on those jokes are that many people view blackness and LGBTQIAS as different, as disconnected instead of interconnected. Because if I'm still trying to communicate my value as a black person, I'm still trying to communicate my value as an LGBTQIAS person. It's not 2 different situations. It's not 2 different things. Because trust and believe, if something happens, they're not necessarily saying LGBTQIAS. They're saying black and they're saying some other word. That's just the reality of experiences. Yet regardless of what my identity expression, my race is, fairness, justness, humanness, dignity are things that we all deserve, regardless if you have, LGBTQIAS expressions or not. You don't need an expression to be treated fair, to be treated treated human or just. You get that just for being on the earth. That's just my thoughts. And so sometimes I find it, challenging to watch these specials because they either separate people or with the ideas and the beliefs, and you find that many people who look like me share that, and they're out there thinking that we're asking for something different, when the reality is I'm asking for the same thing you asking for: humanity, dignity, fairness, justness. And perhaps if we work together, instead of acting as if fairness, justness, humanness, dignity were separate things, we could achieve more together than painting the argument that we're doing things different. Just saying. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's just what I was thinking today. I was thinking, hey, that's the wrong positionality. It's just not helpful. It's not helpful at all. It isn't helpful because, your views tramples on the black LGBTQIAS people that were in that audience, or the people that were in the audience that have family members that are black, or LGBTQIAS. Your message, no matter how nice, no matter how kind, no matter how giving you might be or have been, your ideas and your beliefs and your values, they shouldn't align with that. But, you know, that's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? My opinion on Dave Chappelle's comedy show is not going to change the fact that he still gets a check. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't. I'm just saying it's just an interesting conversation to think about that. And that's how that conversation happens. Because oftentimes people are like, I like black people. But I you know, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my niece, my son, my daughter, my friends is, fill it in. But when it comes to your ideologies and beliefs about said people, tell me what that's about. Tell me what you believe there. Is humanity, dignity, just, fairness, equality, inclusivity a part of those conversations? Just saying. That's all I got. I got to get back to whatever I was doing. I hope y'all have, but we're just waiting on my wife. I hope y'all have a great day. Thanks for listening. Bye.